yeah, if anybody has similar experiences, give me them down below. Or you can DM me on Instagram at Elise Speaks.
We have all of these templates that are put into the site that Squarespace absolutely didn't have to put there for you, but they definitely did. And not only that, they hire award-winning artists, graphic designers to create these sites, and you can't even focus.
I don't... Oh, hey! Everything's fine. Alright, I'll take a shower first. Okay, so maybe it's, a few hours later. What a normal, stress-free year this has been. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about what it is that I wish I did after graduating high school and why I'm finally doing it now. I'm not going to drag it out, I want to learn Spanish. But stay and watch the whole video in case you need some motivation for something in your own life. Whether it's learning a language or literally anything that you tell yourself that you'll get to eventually. Eventually sucks. Eventually keeps you in a permanent state of procrastination. Because when you have a goal, those undefined days will never come. I studied Spanish for 4 years in high school and I loved it. I think it's what got me interested in actively learning about other countries and cultures and food and people. Like, I've always had this curiosity about the world, but there was something about being in that Spanish class that made me realize, hey, I can learn this. Like, this is attainable. Let me rewind a little further. So my dad's side of the family is Italian, and growing up, I would hear Italian spoken all the time. My grandparents emigrated from southern Italy to the US when my dad was a wee bambino.
You know how long I'm here? 55 years.
But they never really taught my generation the language. And whenever I would ask, hey, why didn't you teach me this? Basically the answer was you didn't want to learn, which, okay, fair, but I kind of wish they did it anyway. And I can understand a little, mostly like food or family or around the house type things, but never to a point where I could speak it. And maybe I thought it wasn't possible. Like, once I was old enough to wish I spoke Italian, I already thought it was too late. Or maybe I just didn't think about it that much at all. The next time I was interested in a language other than English was in 6th grade. I was hanging out with one of my best friends at the time, Hong, who is Vietnamese, and we were in his basement singing on his karaoke machine when I asked him to teach me a few words in Vietnamese. Many years later, I am sorry to report I have retained none of them. Then in 9th grade, I got to choose between 2 languages that my high school offered, which were French and Spanish. My dad can speak some Spanish, so whenever someone was speaking Spanish on TV or there was a Spanish song on the radio, I would ask him to translate it for me. And honestly, I think that tiny link is what made me choose Spanish over French. Also, don't get me started about French spelling and pronunciation. Why is it so hard? Once I got a handle on the basics of Spanish, I realized that I loved learning it, and I was good at it. I had 2 great Spanish teachers in high school, Mr. Perez and Mr. DeLuca, and I specifically remember senior year, Mr. DeLuca made me promise that I continue to take Spanish in college. But by this time, it got really hard. Like reading comprehension, writing essays, tenses and suffixes, and seemingly endless vocabulary. And I did what I tend to do when something gets hard. I give up and start something else. So my first 2 years in college, I took Italian, and I constantly confused it with Spanish, although I still did pretty well, because when it got to the point where it got hard, I gave that up, and then I transferred to the university that I graduated from, Montclair State, and I started taking Chinese. And I don't think I have to tell you if I continued studying Chinese after I graduated. Hint, I didn't. And this is one of my least favorite qualities that I have. So in January of this year, 2020, years later, sorry, Mr. DeLuca, I decided I was tired of doing that to myself. The self-sabotage of giving up, because that's really what it is. I knew that I was capable of achieving a goal, but when it came down to putting the work in to be where I wanted to be, I sabotaged myself. And for years I've thought, where would I be? How fluent would I be in every language I've started to learn if I just stuck through the hard parts? And I felt this about working out too. When it gets too hard, I give up and do something easier. Every time. And that came back to bite me this past month because my core muscles are so weak that I pulled my entire groin by moving my bed to another wall. And maybe if I stuck with strength training, that could have been avoided. But that specifically, COVID did play a role, because I actually did join a gym in January, and I was pretty consistent until, the entire world shut down. So, taking it back to the beginning of the year, pre-COVIDian times, I told myself and my patrons on Patreon, if you remember, that on January 1st, I was going to dive back into learning Spanish, and I was going to document the process. So I think you know where this is going. January 1st came and I didn't start it. I didn't know where I wanted to start the video aspect of it, and so I never started the learning aspect of it. Another month went by, because who starts a month-long challenge on the 11th, you know what I mean? And I still didn't know where to start. And then the lockdown began, and I had a really rough few months, which I'm sure many of you did as well. And any motivation that I had was gone, evaporated. Not only for making this Spanish video, but for making any video. Anything, to be honest. And now I feel like I'm finally crawling out of that hole, and I decided that I wasn't going to document it. I realized that the prospect of making it into a video was holding me back from the learning itself. So a few weeks ago, I started working with a tutor. I added the Spanish keyboard to my phone, listened to some Shakira, watched Nailed It Mexico on Netflix, and really just tried to incorporate the Spanish language into my daily life. I started reading The Hunger Games in Espanol, looking up so many words. Like, who knew the word acurrucarse even existed? You know what I mean? Well, I guess Spanish speakers knew. Rub it in. But I guess I didn't just have this realization that I tended to throw in the towel when things got difficult. Because of course I've always known this about myself. I think it was more of an admission, like something I didn't want to outright admit. I didn't want to admit that I never achieved my goals because I prevented myself from achieving them. And that sucks. I regret it because I know I had the ability to make different decisions. And I've been thinking about regret itself, and I don't think I agree with the argument that it is universally bad. I think it's bad if you dwell on it, but it could also be a powerful motivator. Because I regret not continuing to learn Spanish when it was the freshest in my mind, I feel so driven to do it now. I just wish it didn't take me this long to realize it. So this might be the first video in a line of videos documenting my progress, or I may just continue learning and not make another video about it. I don't know. I just wanted to share this with you in case you are at a point in your life that you needed to hear it. Because maybe if I watched a video like this 10 years ago, I would be fluent by now. Who knows? We don't have control over so much, and identifying the things we do have control over is definitely something worth exploring. I truly hope this sparked something positive for you, or maybe you're just really good at self-discipline and following through, and I commend you if that is the case. If you'd like to help support me on this channel, feel free to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description box. And if I do end up posting more content like this, that's where it's going to be posted first, along with other extra little clips and a monthly rambly vlog if that's something you're into. Soy Nicola Foti, están viendo Soundly Awake y nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.